here's an interesting one, and I have got some video of this rider. So I've managed to catch him in a suspension canter, but he's still got one toe on the ground. And so where is the power leak? I could just say from the rider's point, well, from my point of view on the rider, she seems to have slipped forward on that saddle. So it's a jumping saddle, so her thigh is well supported, but there's something happening here where perhaps the horse is shifting her more over the horse's center of rotation. But in terms of power leak from the rider, that's a fairly good position, although I would like to see more knee flexion, but then this is how the saddle is placing her. So possibly, yeah, it is a hilly area. I'm just looking to see if we have got a horizontal picture, or the picture was taken horizontally, possibly. But the power leak does seem to be that he hasn't picked up the left forelimb in enough time for the hinds to land. So I think there is a power leak there. And I just think the front end and the back end don't match. We've got a really good suspension on the back, but a poor one in front. That's what I'm seeing. So if you can see anything else, then just post it. But it's not all bad. I just think there's mistiming slightly. There's some lag from the horse having to lift that left forelimb. It should already be lifted up with the hind limbs. So we'll continue if there's no comments. So what I want you to see here, this is the horse moving. I was just looking to see if, again, this forelimb and the hind limb matched, and I would almost say no. He's pulling with his front legs. Okay, that's a good comment. That's a very good observation. Yes. And you'll see he's overbent. There is some weakness here, but what I want to show you is some rider power leaks. I've managed to correct them, and this horse does move a lot better, although it's intermittent because there's some weakness there, possibly more weakness in the rider than in the horse, but he's only reflecting how he's being loaded. So let's have a look here, what happens and how he changes.
Now let's make him lighter and explain to me what you're doing to make his footfall less audible.
The comment that he's pulling with his front legs is quite true, that you can see there. And what I'm trying to correct is this thumping of the thoracic limbs. So yeah, you can see him pulling. As far as where I've stopped this film, I like the way the back end moves, but again, there's something in the front of this horse. He is 20, by the way, but there's something in the front that's definitely where the power leak is. The hind is moving fairly well, but obviously the other power leak is his tendency to become behind the vertical.
Good. Good. So how are you getting that? How are you achieving that?
I'm adjusting my position so that I'm more upright.
You're more upright.
I'm squeezing my core.
Squeezing your core. So as if you're about to do a sit-up.
Yeah.
Excellent. Great. Good. And land on your triangle really lightly. Good. And your knees we were trying to get the weight pointed down into the knees so that we could get your stirrup back, your ankle back a little.
Yeah, I mean, can you see there is an obvious power leak with her lower leg. And when she adjusts her posture and becomes more stable, and when she becomes a better load for that horse to carry, it does correct those power leaks. So a comment here, he looks to be croup high, which forces him onto the front end. Yes, that is true. That is true. But with a better loaded rider, it's easier for him, for the croup high conformation to not be as influential. So just have a look. The more stable we get this rider, the less power leaks we see in the horse and in the rider too.
That's it. So that the stirrup doesn't push you back into the saddle. Great stuff. Okay, I think it's time for a canter. So with the canter, he becomes a carousel horse. So you've got a nice big thick pole through your head, through your triangle, through his ribs, and go with him. Really synchronize. Excellent. Excellent. Now we've got a little bit of seat movement. So how much contact can you get that triangle? Good.
What I'm talking about with the triangle is you normally would be asked to focus on your seat bones. Well, there's only 2 of those. But what I do is get the rider to bring in some contact with the pubic bone, because obviously a 3-legged chair is more supportive than a 2-legged chair. So it really helps the rider to stabilize and to focus their stabilization if they can make a triangular contact with the saddle. Unfortunately, many cannot because of the way the saddle is or just does not fit their conformation, their pelvic floor conformation. And you can see in this frame here that the rider has been pushed to the back of the saddle and her limbs are thrust forward as the horse comes into stance with the left forelimb. So yeah, and he is croup high. He has got good movement behind, but this saddle is not helping this rider.
Better.
You can see the power leaks here. She has managed to control her stability and increase her stability there, but still the horse is very much, he's almost losing power out in front and losing it out behind, and he is behind the vertical. So yeah, this saddle is just doesn't seem to be helping, or it's putting her in this position where she's leaning forward, she's towards the back of the cantle. There's not a lot of knee roll support there. There is no thigh support. That's completely missing her thighs. So let's go on.
Triangle contact in exactly the same slots in the saddle. And ribs. Excellent. Excellent. Oh.
So she's better organized there, and he's just starting to lift up in front.
Oh. Yes. Now a little bit more muscle contraction.
I'm just trying to get him on the up. Yeah, he's lengthened his stride, and yeah, but she still can't get the ankle underneath her more, under the hip joint.
From you, another 20%, and he will loosen up and get quieter. Oh, let's make it 40%. Yeah, good boy. Now, just bring him back to walk for a second. a little technique for a horse that was over bending, that was quite fit, as fit as him. I suggested, out of nowhere, that her sternum lined up with his mane. So you get the middle of your sternum over the middle of his neck, and you point your sternum towards the base of his neck, so about a third of the way up. So in front of those pads that the breastplate makes or has on them. So just in front of those, if you drew a line up from the fluffy bit at the front. So off you go. Let's try that again in canter, but line your sternum up over his, as well as everything else I just said to do.
So the effect that has, I'm focusing her body very centrally. So sternum over mane, and that centralization is just helping to equal her up.
Good. Okay. So we've got the heavy knees and thighs all downward bound to keep you stable. The triangle really plugged in. The upper body down. The carousel post to stop you moving around. Now let's get the sternum over the base of his neck, third of the way up. Okay, I'd go with that. The walk is wonderful. So if you can do walk to canter so you don't disturb yourself. Whoa, oh, if. Oh, yes. Okay, so think sternum. Now take your sternum up to his pole, the upper third of the neck. And that's how you bring the head up, if you can keep it there. That's it. So with your triangle and your sternum, connect those together and just see if you can bring sort of the centre of his back, yes, up to the sternum, so up to the pole, yeah. Use your sternum and your triangle, oh yeah, yes. So let's make another triangle. Sternum, pole or ears. Get the sternum really locked onto his pole. Oh, fantastic. You're getting flashes of that. And then your triangle. So you're making a triangle from your triangle to your sternum to his pole. Maybe back to your triangle again. Let's see if that works. Oh, yes. There you go. New triangle. Oops, lost it. Great. Just rest for a moment.
You can see there in the ridden horse, the power leaks in the horse are very much influenced by the power leaks in the rider. What was happening there, I was lining her up, not just backwards and forwards, but I was lining her up centrally over in 3 dimensions over the horse's body, and that works really, really well. So here we've got a horse which is much more stable. I've done much more work on this combination. The rider is more stable. Again, I don't think this saddle, as in, well, a lot of cases, when the rider is being asked to adopt a stable position, often the saddle will block that because the saddle puts them in a more fixed position, or the tree rather, yeah, and the knee rolls. So let me just roll this on and just see a nice free movement on this horse. So it's almost as if the rider's not there. The back is free. There are no power leaks on this horse. The thoracic sling is pushing up. The withers are lifting. And this rider is stable. This is what we are aiming for. Stable rider so that the horse is free. He's not being restricted. The saddle's moving at the back. Her leg's not in a good position, But if you look at the slow-mo, this horse is able to lift the withers. She's landing in the same position each time and landing lightly so that this horse can move. She's stable, she's synchronized. So what we see here is an Olympic standard horse, a very small horse, 2012 Olympics. This is an old film. And actually, no, he wasn't at the Olympics. It was his first trip to badminton. He's an eventer. And just look at this whole body moving. There is not, I challenge you to find a single power leak here. So this is an example of a horse without any power leaks. So he's got a good long stride, an enormous wither lift, good back function. He sits down behind. That's not a power leak. Just see the power coming from the hind end, transmitted to the front end there. So I want you to see, because it's not often that you'll see power leak free movement in these horses, but we can attribute that in a lot of cases to the rider. It's just knowing how to stabilize them, to help them to synchronize, because the horse wants synchrony, doesn't want to be shuffling the rider just so that they can balance better. Obviously, I go into that in a lot more detail in the rider evaluation and stabilization course. But yeah, so I hope now you can see the difference between the power leaking horse and the horse that is not restricted and just doesn't have those postural aberrations that others have. And just recall that the training program, the conditioning program, is often where this starts to go wrong, but it is also the riders riding consistently less stable than they could be. And obviously that comes down to rider fitness. I'm just working on that program at the moment, but yeah, the horse should move with a rider in the same way that it moves without a rider. So okay, if there's no questions, that ends this.